Welcome to the OHIO podcast, and we are here today with another one of our little vignettes, shall we call them, Eric?
Sure.
And today we are going to talk about former Buckeyes who are now in coaching. And man, Eric, there are a ton of them.
There's a lot.
But we want to focus on who we think are currently the five best in the coaching game right now. And I'm very interested to see what you have because I'll tell you, there are so many criteria you can have. We did not limit this to head coaches.
Mm-mm.
We do have some head coaches. Obviously, we know firsthand we've got some great assistant coaches. We've got some great high school coaches in the state of Ohio and around as well. So, Eric, let's start it off. We're going to go from 5 to 1. Who is your number 5?
So before I reveal my list, I do want to kind of give you a feel for how I came up with my list.
Okay.
The higher level you go up, so from high school to college,
Yes.
small college to bigger college to the pros, to the NFL, the more, I guess, credit I give you.
Mhm.
Also, the difference between a coordinator and a head coach. Most head coaches were coordinators. So I took that into account. Your reputation
Yes.
overall, I think, is something else that I took into account, and I came up with a list. Number 5 for me is Eddie George over there at Tennessee State University. Are we
You're
going to be
doing
in
it.
step
You're,
again?
you're doing it to me again, Eric. I went with Eddie George as well. 9-13 over the last 2 seasons. But you know what? He's early in his tenure there at Tennessee
Yes.
State, and he feels the program's going in the right direction. And honestly, Eric, who can argue with a Heisman Trophy winner?
Well, and he's become kind of the coaching face of black colleges now since Dion's moved
Since
on to
Dion, yeah, bolted to
Colorado.
Colorado.
So we'll see if that gives him a little bit more street cred in recruiting and developing
Sure.
there. But what I don't know how much longer he's going to be there. Now, there's quite a few former Buckeyes who are coaching with him there. But
Yep.
the NFL gave him a 2-week trial
Yes.
with the Titans, I believe it was.
Which we're going to get talking about them a little bit later here again, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yes, we are. And I think there's a chance he ends up in the NFL when it's all said and done, as like a running backs coach or a coordinator, maybe even a head coach down the road. I know a lot of Buckeye fans would love to see him come and replace Tony Alford when Tony Alford steps down as the running backs coach. I don't know. I just don't. I don't
Better
know
happen quick if it's going to happen.
Yeah, Tony Alford's doing a pretty doggone good job
He's
recruiting and
awfully good.
developing. And the only way I would see that would happening is if Tony Alford gets a head coaching job.
Yeah, and we talked to our friend John from the Always Irish podcast, and he said that was one of the biggest pains he ever felt was when Tony Alford left the Irish to come over to Ohio State. So,
Yeah, yeah.
okay, Eric, for me, number 4 for me, Eric, I went with Marcus Freeman. 9-5 over 2 seasons. He is 1-1 in bowl games. Not, it's well documented. I am not his biggest fan after the comments he made, before playing Ohio State last season. But, I think he had great success as a coordinator under Luke Fickell down at Cincinnati. He had continued success at Notre Dame as a defensive coordinator. And, 9-5, when you are still somewhat, like we've talked about in the past, learning on the job. I don't accept that at an Ohio State and Alabama, Georgia. But a 9-5 after what Chip Kelly left, not Chip Kelly, I'm sorry, Brian Kelly left Notre Dame, the shape they were in. I think Freeman does deserve a little bit of credit for that.
Here's where we're going to differ a little bit. I got him a little higher.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. Number 4 for me is Brian Hartline. He's the only coordinator I have on my list that's not a head coach.
We can share that.
He's deserving of every accolade he gets because of recruiting and the development. But I don't want to put him higher than 4 because he's not called plays yet. Let's see how he does as a coordinator first. before we put him in the echelon of the top three that I currently have, which Marcus Freeman is in there. Because Marcus Freeman has a longer track record as a coordinator than Brian Hartline does. Brian Hartline doesn't even have a track record yet. He has a track record of being a pretty phenomenal, maybe the greatest wide receiver coach in college football history. Okay, but that's not a coordinator. So let's see how he does as a coordinator before we jump him into my top three. But I know you're going to make an argument here for him probably at number three, aren't you?
Yeah, I do have him at number three, Eric.
Yeah.
You know, obviously, this is mostly about riding the hot hand, so to speak. He's arguably, I think, the greatest, one of the best recruiters in college football, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, you mentioned it, the development of wide receivers since taking over the room for the Buckeyes. You know, in the past 2 seasons, he's produced 3 first-round draft picks, with perhaps the best one of the bunch coming out this season.
Right.
I think, barring some kind of a major injury, you know, Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be the top wide receiver off the board, quite possibly a top 2 draft pick.
Mm-hmm.
He is a Heisman contender. You know, and like you said, it is still, you know, it's still yet to be seen. Is he going to be as successful as an offensive coordinator as he was as a position coach? I don't know, but I'm not going to bet against him with the track record he's got right now. I've got him in at number 3. Like I said, I gave Marcus Freeman a little bit of, you know, a little bit of credit. Maybe there's a little bit of bias still in there. Like I said, I'm not Marcus Freeman's biggest fan, so maybe that may have played a little bit of a role in what I did. But yeah, I've got Hartline at number 3.
All
I'm
right.
going to bet this is where you got Freeman.
It is, and let me give you a crazy scenario for you.
Okay.
So one of the things that I think Ohio State fans, you and I, we've kind of walked our way through, talked ourselves through over the past 18 months is the fact that Ryan Day's learning on the job. Every coach
you've accepted that.
I have accepted that, yes. Well, you're going to have to accept it because I think even with Ryan, if Ryan Day were to have a crazy successful year this year and win the national championship, you would literally have to look back at the last 3 or 4 years and go, oh yeah, he learned from all of those mistakes. Because otherwise, how would you explain winning this year if he does that? Dumb luck?
Well, I don't know if
Crazy.
it's dumb luck. I mean, I think obviously we've both said it, Eric. If he wins this year, I think it's as much a defensive victory as it is anything.
Oh, absolutely. But again, is that not learning from mistakes as a head coach?
Is it?
Yeah,
Or is it just the maturation of a defense that's learned Knowles' defense, and the fact that if you look at Knowles historically,
but
his second year is always better.
Did Ryan Day not, as head coach, have to pull the trigger and say, "I'm sorry, Kerry, you're out of here. I'm going to go get someone better"?
He did.
That's still the head coach. That's Gene Smith, I'm sure, had a hand in helping with that, obviously, especially securing the funds to do it. But no, that's definitely under Ryan Day's decision making. And so, but the point I'm making is this: the growing pains we are feeling right now as Ohio State fans under Ryan Day is exactly what Notre Dame is experiencing. They're just several years behind us. Crazy scenario. I don't even like thinking about this, but
don't say it, Eric. I know where you're going with this. Don't say it.
This is something that Notre Dame fans are talking about. What if Ohio State goes in the South Bend, Marcus Freeman beats Ryan Day, Notre Dame beats Ohio State, Ryan Day goes into Ann Arbor, loses again, gets crunched again 3 years in a row. This fan base is going to get really upset.
And
already more than they are, okay? There will then be an official hot seat at that moment. As much as we want to put him on the hot seat already, it's not
he's
hot.
on the hot seat.
So let's say
okay, it's very warm.
Okay, let's say he does leave or gets fired or whatever. There is a very real possibility that one of the phone calls Gene Smith makes, I'm not saying it'll be the answer, but I think there's a better chance that Marcus Freeman becomes the coach of Ohio State than Luke Fickell does.
Well, yeah, and we've documented that. We think that Gene Smith may have alienated Fickle to some extent.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, I think Fickle's in a very good position. As far as where he's at Wisconsin, he is in the perfect place for him right now. So yeah, I would not be surprised by that because, as we've said, as much as we love Brian Hartline, he's not ready to be a head coach. I think we can both agree on that.
He needs more time. Mm-hmm.
He has to have time. He has to have some success as a coordinator.
I don't know that he's going to stay in college forever. He's talked about the fact he's always been an NFL fan. He views himself and he runs the room like an NFL program. And
but you know what?
Show that. But
you know what? He's really almost getting paid NFL money already.
Almost, yeah. As a position coach, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. He gets to stay at home, and at least right now, I don't think there's near the pressure on him that there would be at the NFL level. Not only that, but the kids at this level are still very coachable.
Sure.
You don't have to deal quite as much, although who knows what's going to happen with this NIL thing. You don't have to quite deal with the prima donnas just yet.
Mm-hmm.
Although I do see that developing and becoming worse as NIL gets more firmly entrenched. But yeah, I mean, you're right. There's a possibility. And, who knows? Maybe Eddie George has a couple good seasons. Maybe that's a call. But yeah, if you're right. I think if it were to happen this season, the way you're talking, Marcus Freeman gets called.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, I think there's only one call that might come before him, and that would be my guy who's number 2 on the list.
Oh, okay.
Who is coming to the end of his contract in the NFL.
If we're gonna talk about making phone calls, if Ryan Day were to leave before the bowl game or a playoff, which he wouldn't leave before a playoff, but let's say things go bad and
you know who they're calling if it's a one and off.
It's going to be Urban.
It's going to be Urban, absolutely.
For a one-off, yeah.
For a one-off, absolutely. I mean, is there really a better coach outside of maybe Saban when it comes to, winning a bowl game, winning a championship? Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, my number 2 guy, I've got Mike Vrabel. There could be an argument for number 1 on this, but I'll get to why I got the other guy number 1 here in a few minutes. But in 5 seasons, Mike Vrabel, Tennessee Titans head coach, 48-34, 4 winning seasons. I'm sorry, 5 winning seasons, 4 playoff appearances. No, I did that backwards. It's 4 winning seasons, 5 playoff appearances. The guy got in there with a losing record one year.
That's how bad the division was.
Yeah. But 2-3 in the playoffs. But you know what? His worst season came last season, and he didn't have Derrick Henry all season, and he's got no quarterback.
Still does.
And he still went, I think, 7-9, I think, 7-10.
Mm-hmm.
That's not bad.
No.
So but
I'm
then
with
again, yeah.
I'm with you. I struggled I really wanted to put him number 1. I just can't because I had Fickle last time we did this exercise.
Yeah.
I had Fickle number 1 then too, and he was still in Cincinnati at the time. And I think we're gonna find out how good Fickle is. Really how good he is. I think he's pretty good. He made Cincinnati. He took Cincinnati to the college football playoff.
57-18 over 6 seasons at Cincinnati. The guy averaged nearly 10 wins a year at Cincinnati,
and that's with a really bad first year.
Yeah,
they sucked their first year. So
they were what 2-10 that first year.
Three and something. They had 3 wins, but my point is that he built them up really quickly, and I don't think the rebuilding process in Wisconsin is going to take nearly the amount of time it took in Cincinnati. And if Wisconsin gets any semblance of a passing attack to go along with how we know they can run the football, and how they traditionally play defense, that
Yeah.
is an incredibly dangerous football team year one. And
Yeah.
I looked, and here's how I made my final decision. I put myself as the athletic director of Ohio State, and I said to myself, if I could persuade Luke Fickell to come to Ohio State, I would choose him over Vrabel
Mhm.
because of this simple fact. Fickell is a college coach.
Correct. He
I
is a
don't
teacher.
know. I don't know if Vrabel is a college coach.
Yeah.
He's a great NFL coach, but those are two different things. How many college guys have gone in the
Just
NFL
ask Urban.
and fallen flat on their face because it's a completely different style and game. And I don't think Luke Fickell would be successful in the NFL,
No.
and I'm not sure Vrabel would be as successful in college as he is in the NFL. I think he would win a lot of football games. I don't know that he would lead a team to a national championship because I just don't see that he has um, that type of college mantra, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's how I came up with Luke Fickell over Mike Vrabel.
Yeah. And if you look at it, Eric, like you said, Fickle is going, I think, to be. I think Fickle's going to go down as a extremely successful college coach when all is said and done.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it. You look at the guys who made the jump from college to the pros and didn't make it. You're talking about three of possibly the greatest coaches since the '80s in
Mm-hmm.
Steve Spurrier, Nick Saban, and
Urban
Urban,
Meyer,
who
yeah.
who fell flat on their faces in the pros.
Jimmy
Yeah.
Johnson, and
Jimmy Johnson did pretty
uh,
well, but I mean,
what's the other coach from Oklahoma? Went to the
Barry
Cowboys.
Switzer did
Barry
okay,
Switzer.
but Barry Switzer was riding Jimmy Johnson's coattails for the most part. So I don't know how much of that we can actually credit with him, to him.
Chip Kelly.
So
Chip Kelly was okay. I wouldn't call it
yeah, he
successful, but I
wasn't
wouldn't call
great.
it falling on his face either.
No, but I'll tell you what. You listen to the players talk, especially like a Deshaun Jackson, and boy, they really hated Chip Kelly in the NFL, and they
Really?
blamed him for destroying the Eagles.
Well, the Eagles are
I mean,
doing
that was the actual words he used, was destroying the Eagles.
the Eagles, who are known as the Philadelphia Bulldogs, apparently are flying high these days. So
Yeah,
this was a lot of fun, Chris.
yeah, a
This was
lot of
good.
fun. Yeah, so I'll tell you what, make sure you go on, like us, subscribe us, ring the little bell so you know when we're on again. And until next time, OH,
Io.
go Bucks!